Hi, everybody. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, let's start. Yeah. Sid, whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
The challenges that I face to stick to what I believe in, creating use out of the useless. They thought I could not do it, they thought I could not make it, and today I am in the Forbes 30 under 30 list of social entrepreneurs of Asia. I am Dr. Binish Desai of Rotary Club of Vibrant Valsad. I am a social entrepreneur and an innovator. I convert waste into eco-innovations, houses, toilets, and 150 other products. A social entrepreneur is someone who talks about creating a social change through its products, through its disruptive technologies. To provide them the employment. My factories were quite far from here, and I thought, let's do something unique. Let's bring the factory here. It's not just about creating a particular product, but actually breaking the barriers that the society has created.
We started with very small ideations of doing something for women, something for the society, and that led to a journey which is starting, and now let's see where it takes us.
So for all those who were not here yesterday, Chops is our gifting partner. And for all the attendees of yesterday as well as today, everybody who's registered with us is going to receive a really unique promo code, which through which they can purchase Chops at a fantastic price, exclusively and only for all the attendees of e-RYLA. And they're a very young, hip, modern brand, homegrown from India, and they have some really funky designs for everybody to choose from. So do check them out, everyone. We will be emailing to you all as the session ends today. Yes, Sid, we can move to the next. super well in the future, and wishing you good luck as well.
Hey,
Hi Gaurav, welcome. Gaurav is our charter president. Welcome, Gaurav.
Hi everybody.
It's
All the best,
the
guys.
video playing from yesterday. Just give it a second.
Yeah, it's visible.
The challenges that I face to stick to what I believe in, creating use art. They thought I could not do it, they thought I could not make it, and today I'm in the Forbes 30.
Sid, are we ready to play the next video? Just allow Sid to reiterate himself. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Everyone who's new here today. I hope you all will enjoy today's session. I am Dhwani Doshi from Youth Services at the Rotary Club of Mumbai Coastline. And e-RYLA, this is our second year that we are doing e-RYLA. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy today's session too. I'm waiting for Sid to come on, but I'm presuming that he's facing some technical difficulty. So in the meantime, Abhay, should we continue with your session in the meantime?
Yeah, Pranav, are you giving me time or you want to start?
Yes, go ahead, Abhay. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Go ahead. In the meantime,
Some advantages I can take with my friend Pranav. So, good morning, everyone. And I'm going to time myself 3 minutes so that we somehow make sure that we end on time. So my 3 minutes have started. See, kids, not kids, youth, tomorrow's future. You will hear a lot of sessions today. You've already heard about photography. You heard about being an RJ. You heard about being a chef. Today, you'll hear about fitness. You'll hear about interior designing. You will also be hearing from many superstar speakers. Why are we doing this? We are doing this so that this starts making your mind think what you want to do once your education is over. It is not just about deciding whether we want to do science, arts, or commerce. I want to drive one point over. It is about choosing the right philosophy in life. It's a very bhari word, philosophy. What is philosophy? It is the rule book of life. How am I going to live my life ahead? What are the terms I'm going to live it on? What are the things I'm going to focus on, not focus on? And unfortunately, this is a very individual decision. This cannot be decided in classrooms. This cannot be decided in a group of friends. I'm going to tell you what helped me choose a philosophy in life. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can you all see my screen? It's called How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. Sounds very interesting, right? How to get rich without getting lucky. We all want to be rich eventually, be it in money, be it in terms of knowledge, be it in terms of influence, anyway. So some rules which I'm going to tell you, they are not from me. First of all, I am too normal to think about all this. This is from a serial entrepreneur called Naval Ravikant. And you all can look him up. I'll put the link also. On Twitter, you'll find a lot of interesting topics. So he came out with a tweet storm or a series of tweets. First of all, 5 rules. Seek wealth. Don't seek money or status. Now, what is wealth? Wealth is having assets that earn when you sleep. So when you're thinking about the future, think about that asset which you own, which even if you don't go to work the next day, you will still make money out of it. For example, rent. For example, some product on the internet which people keep buying without you having to be bothered. So that is wealth. Don't seek money or status. What is money? Money is just how you transfer time and wealth. It is not, I don't want to have 1 million, 1 billion, 1 crore, 10 crores. Money is just a figure. It's just the exchange of commodity. And don't seek status. Status is where I am in the society's hierarchy. Do I come in a Mercedes? Do I wear a flashy Ray-Ban sunglasses? Do I have a flashy watch? Don't do that. Ignore the people who are playing status games. They will only gain status by attacking people playing wealth creation games. So if you are being criticized for your ideas, you are on the right path. Trust me about it. You are not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own some piece of the business or the venture. Let's say, for example, you are part of a project. Make sure you own the project completely. That is where you will get the maximum rewards, and that is where you'll get the maximum satisfaction. This, of course, is later once you graduate and you're thinking about what to do in your next step in life. This is the most important slide, I'll put it. You are going to get rich by giving society what it wants, but does not know how to get it, and that too at scale. Think about Zomato. You all must have heard that Zomato, you all order food from Swiggy, Zomato. Why did Zomato do so well? Before Zomato came, tell me, how would you order your food? You would call some restaurant, you would take the wrong order, the food never used to come on time. So people were getting frustrated. What did Deepinder do? He simply created a menu curating product called Foodie Bay and then advanced it and made it Zomato. He gave people what they want, but they did not know how to get it and at scale. So do keep this in mind. Finally, arm yourself with specific knowledge. Don't be a generalist. What is a generalist? Someone who gets good marks in physics, chemistry, maths, science, history, geography. I'm not saying don't study hard. Study hard. But as you go into college, as you get into maybe higher studies after 12, arm yourself with the specific knowledge. Dr. Pranav has armed himself with orthopedics. Rachna is an ENT specialist. If you are going to be a generalist, there are going to be 10,000 other generalists. Hey guys, can we mute the Siddharth? Can you just make sure new joinees are just muted, please? Thanks. So I'll just yeah. So it's very important to have that specific domain expertise. Way back in the past, we used to make fun. Oh, he's a carpenter. Oh, he's a plumber. Oh, he's a driver. So odd. What a low-lying job. Today, when you have a Namrita session, ask her how easy it is to get a plumber or carpenter. And trust me, a good plumber or carpenter will be earning as much as a normal engineer will be earning. I'm not saying become a carpenter or plumber, but I'm saying take back the lesson of having specific knowledge. Be an expert in one thing and be that expert where the entire world comes to you. That's it. I will share the links of this tweet storm. There are 100 more tweets. I just thought I'll pick this up. All the best to you guys. You guys are a great audience. And thanks a lot. Dhwani, over to you.
Thank you so much, Abhay. That was insightful. And we're waiting for Rotarian Rohan Dalmia. I don't think he's here yet. Rohan, are you here?
Yes, I am very much here. I'm very much here. Sorry, my screen name I forgot to rename.
No problem, no problem. A warm welcome to Rotarian Rohan Dalmia. Here's a little bit about him that everybody must know. Before that, I'd like to officially welcome everyone. Good morning, respected members of the district, presidents of Club 3141 district and beyond, sponsor clubs, Rotarians, Rotractors from the district committee, Rotractors, interactors, students, friends, everyone who is here today. Welcome to Yuvaan, the Career Guidance e-Conclave. A warm welcome. With the support of numerous team members, we have been able to put together this wonderful event. With over today we have not 400, but we have about 575 registrations and viewers on our Zoom and Facebook platforms. Today amongst us are career aspirants from Mumbai, Sri Lanka, Netherlands, Gujarat, Chittagong, Tamil Nadu, Indore, Jalna, Latur, Dhulia, Karad, and beyond. Thank you everyone for being here today. Your support means everything to the board and the youth committee. This is the second year of e-RYLA for us, and falling in the footsteps of my dear friend Rotarian Aditya Mehta, and we're hosting this event today. A special mention to our co-sponsors, Rotary Club of Mumbai Parleshwar, Rotary Club of Mahakali Heights, Rotary Club of Bombay Airport, our parent club, and Rotary Club of Mulund Hills. We hope to be associated with you through the future. Thank you to our beverage partners, Cherries India, and our gifting partners, Chops. Wonderful to have you aboard. I officially now welcome Rotarian Rohan Dalmia, Avenue Chair for Rotract and Interact at the district level. He has been the first DRR, Rotract representative for our district after the bifurcation, and has some interesting thoughts to share with you all. Welcome, Rotarian Rohan. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dhwaniji. And when I saw the first creative of this event, I was like, finally, we are coming up with some innovative ways of encouraging and probably showing the audience, the youth, the participants, actually what Rotary can offer. Because I love telling this to everyone that Rotary has some of the finest individuals who are connected to every vocation of life. You can't even imagine that, oh, we can make a career in a particular activity, and you have somebody from that genre in Rotary. And what better way to network over here for all the participants, the interactors. I believe there are a few Rotractors also present over here. What better way to connect with these people directly? You must have heard from people that somebody's trying to apply for a job, somebody's trying to get connected to a particular corporate or an office. Over here, the best part of this organization is that you're all together. The CEO, the managing directors, and the chairmen of companies are sitting in Rotary. The only point that we need to understand is that let's experiment what exactly we want to do in life, and probably that can be a way to work with these Rotarians in their offices. No Rotary member will say a no if you say, I want to come and work as an intern in your company to understand whether I actually want to make my career in this genre. For instance, if I may be good at organizing events, but do I want to make event management my career? Yes, no, maybe. We don't know. I may have had bad experiences during college days or school days in organizing activities. Or maybe my senior in school or college senior in school or college may not have given me the kind of respect that I deserve. I may think that, you know what, job is not my cup of tea. And I want to become an entrepreneur. Why? Because my vertical or my peers did not handle me well. I feel I should be my own boss. So the idea that I'm trying to bring over here is that this organization is a platform where we can experiment every such point. We have experts from different genres. We've been hearing some of them on the communication between yesterday and today, that you have so many career perspectives. The idea is to start practicing them by working with people who are already in this system. If we can do that, a lot of your thoughts can get cleared, and they will be ready to welcome you because we are part of the system. Rotract, Interact, Rotary, they all want to work together. At the Rotary front, we're trying to come up with a program where we invite Rotarians who are working in different companies to give official internships to the Rotractors and Interactors for them to understand the career path. If this works, it's a jackpot for you guys. I mean, during my time, people before me, I don't think we had such options available. I remember people would only say science, engineer, doctor. These are the three things in the science background. Commerce means accounts karega ye banda. Arts means कि ये teacher बनेगी या ये teacher बनेगा or something like that. But today they have much more meanings. The question is, are we aware of it? If yes, perfect, bang on. If no, then let's explore. And I always love to say, let's exploit the world of Rotary and get our thoughts cleared. Internet today has connected us very well. Any part of the world, there is a way to even get connected to Bill Gates if you want to. And it is possible. You want to go connect to Barack Obama, it's possible. You want to go connect to Narendra Modi, it's possible. Our Rotary World leader just did that a few days back. Let's explore our thoughts. मुझे अगर chef बनना है, you don't need to wait till your TY, third year final graduation. You can start from your 11th standard.
Correct.
If I want to become a dancer, there are dedicated courses, there are dedicated curriculum only for that. I want to become a psychologist. You don't need to do MBBS for that. There is a dedicated forum for that. You want to become anything that you desire. There is a dedicated career path from the 11th standard. The question is, this is the time to start exploring that. Sit down with a pen, sit down with a paper, write down the things that you wish to do in life. Write down the things that you do not wish to do in life. And then let's start seeing what career options fit. Search on the internet, you will get an answer. Come back to the Rotary, let them know that this is what I want to experiment. I promise to you that they will help you with the internship or the guidance from the industry experts sitting over there. It may not happen instantly, but we will also have to explore it. But you will get the best possible things. You want to go experiment a particular country. There is a program in Rotary that can help you go study outside your country almost for free of cost.
Hey, Rohan, we are running out of time, so you'll have to, if you can just help us quickly wrap it up, then we can sort of go over.
Done, sir.
You were telling us about the international avenues.
Yes. So if we are able to do that, we have that as an experiment also over here. So explore, exploit, and experiment this platform. And I think everything is there for you. The entire career building, the vision building that we are talking over here will make a difference in your life. So make the most of it, and we are all here to help you.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Rohan Dalmia, for your time. And it means a lot. I know you have a busy schedule, but you made time for us. We're really grateful, and we appreciate the district's presence here today.
Always.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, over to my dear friend and Rotarian Dr. Pranav Agrawal, who's going to address us for 5 minutes regarding, a very special topic that he's going to share with us today.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome again to Yuvaan e-RYLA 2021. I'm Dr. Pranav Agrawal. I am an orthopedic and adult joint reconstruction surgeon, and I work at the Lilavati and Arogyanidhi hospitals in the western suburbs of Mumbai. I super specialize in surgery of knees and hip joints, which includes arthroscopic and replacement surgeries of all these things, right? Let me thank at the outset Youth Director Dhwani, President Abhay, and partner clubs for giving me this opportunity to interact, motivate, and inspire these young, powerful minds which have endless potential. Since our conclave this year is about career guidance, let me define what career means according to the English dictionary, and I'm reading, is an occupation undertaken for a significant period of a person's life with opportunities for progress. Okay. Gone are the days when parents used to get up in the morning and say, Bada wala to business sambhalega, chota wala to pilot banega, and beti to dentist banegi. Okay. And all of this used to happen before they have conceived their kids also. These days in modern times, daughters are becoming pilots, daughters are taking care of their family business, and sons are also becoming dentists. Sorry about the pot shot. So I have 5 minutes in this session, and let me talk about 5 important points which I think are very, very important towards making a good career. And mind you, I'm not talking about a very specific line. I'm talking about any career. You can rock any career in any which field.
Before you start, you have to be a little louder, because I don't want anyone to miss that out. If you can increase the volume, Yeah, because you are a great speaker. I don't want to miss out on that.
Sure. Am I audible better? Am I audible?
Much better, much better.
Okay, okay. So the first point is education and specialization. Education and further specialization, like Abhay said, are bare essential while moving towards any career. Once your career is decided, once you have the means and more to go on to a particular path, you need to get education and formal training in that line. One may argue that Bill Gates and the owner of Facebook and all such people are college dropouts and they've made it so big. Why do you need education? But Gates and their colleagues are an exception. Just look at the credentials of every CEO, every vice president, and every engineer who have made Microsoft what it is today. I'll give an example closer home. A dear friend of mine from medical school, he was a pro at performing arts. Immediately after school, immediately after MBBS, he produced his first musical play. But he started failing when he wanted to go into the mainstream. Then he went and got a degree in film production from FTII. And that's when success came to him. He is now the head creative writer and director for a very big production house. See, you may be a good singer or a musician, but you have to go through those years of training as a classical musician to be able to compose. Say you are a good cook. अरे भाई इनकी तो पाव भाजी इतनी solid बनती है. But the fact is that you have to go through the grind of hotel management to become an excellent chef. So these are the things that you have to do. You know, this is what is going to take you to that upper edge of your career. That's education and specialization. Now, point number 2, dedication and focus. It is said that you must be jack of all trades and master of one. Suppose you are John Rambo and you are good at sword fighting, you are good at nunchucks, you are good at bow and arrow, you are also good at rifle shooting, and you are also good at detonation devices. But in war, you can't use all these weapons all at once. You have to be damn good and exceptionally good at one of them for good offense and for good defense. So as my teachers taught me, they used to say very early in life, you should be very clear what you want to pursue as a career and what you want to pursue as a hobby. These are two different things. They can never be mixed. So if you go after something, rest assured it will fall in your path. Rest assured you will get success. Point number 3, perseverance and courage. Pure courage. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was the book of Renan Martin from which I am giving all these proverbs. It took 22 years for them to build the Taj Mahal. It took 20 years for them to build the Great Pyramid. And it took 66 years for us to eradicate polio from our country. And I say this very proudly because we are all part of Rotary, who has actually helped eradicate polio from our country. And it took 66 years. So it takes variable times for many things to manifest the way you have envisioned it, right? So one must have patience, perseverance, and the courage to wait, to be patient, to have courage to wait till the best comes to you. And then you have to have some more courage to keep that going and probably to improve, right? Point number 4, aptitude and flexibility. I'll give you a very simple example of aptitude. As a hobby, I play music instruments and I perform also. My wife, who is an ENT surgeon that Abhay said in the morning, is a painter. She makes beautiful paintings, and some of my paintings in my house are made by her. So last Sunday, we tried an experiment. I gave her my guitar and she gave me her canvas and paintbrush, and believe me, it was a disaster. You get the drift? That is what aptitude is all about. So you need to be sure what you are going to like. Suppose you don't like blood, you have no business being a surgeon. Blood dekhne pe if you are fainting, then surgeon is not a good idea. You might as well work with Microsoft. These are the things, you know. So the next point over here is, see, I'll tell you about one of my colleagues from medicine. You know, he used to love to draw and paint cars. He wanted to become an automobile engineer. But because of his parents and because of peer pressure, he ended up being a pile specialist. Now, this man is making some beautiful Batmobiles and lovely cars, you know, things that you want to eat up. So beautiful. And he's now becoming a pile specialist. So imagine his predicament. He's a failure. So the next point is flexibility. Suppose you took on some career, one line you took on. And then you realize that I just cannot go through with this. Okay, it's just not you. Have the courage to change tracks at any point in time. Take up another line, get educated in that line, pursue it tooth and nail, and believe me, you will be a winner. And that brings me to that last point. What the hell is a winner? How do you define success? What does success mean? So let me go back to the dictionary. Success is defined as the favorable or prosperous termination of attempts and endeavors and the accomplishment of one's goals. So it means that you can define what success means to you. For some, success is all about money, like Abhay said. And why not? We all work for money. We all want to live for money. All of us live for money. For some, it is having a decent amount of money and having the time to pursue hobbies and other pursuits. Fine. For some, they don't care about money, but they care about the social standing, respect, etc. Fine. You can define what success means to you, and then you have to go after it. There have to be two of you. You, the self, who is the performer, and you, the self, who is the mentor. There have to be two of you. You, the performer, and you, the mentor. And you must dissociate from all emotions attached to both these individuals. Objective performance of self and objective mentorship by the self. Life is like a game of cards. Sometimes you might have a very good hand. Sometimes you might have a very bad game in your hand. Or even if you have a good game, somebody else might be holding a trump card over your ace. But it's no point cribbing to the dealer. You have to do best with whatever you have in your hand. You should know when to fold them. You should know when to hold them. And you should know when to run away. Because sometimes success can be defined as cutting losses. It's not about making it damn big. It's about not ending up very bad, right? And at this juncture, I'm going to leave you with an example which is very close to my heart. There was a very legendary drummer called Steven Adler. He was the founding drummer of a legendary band called Guns N' Roses. I don't know if some of y'all have heard Guns N' Roses. He was a legendary drummer. One fine day, Guns N' Roses woke up and they said, boss, you have to go. Because for whatever reason, they said that you can't play with us anymore. This man, his career nosedived. He became depressed. He went to addictions and it was finished. He never got back up again. He never played with another band. In contrast, I'm going to tell you a story of another guy called Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine was the founder, guitarist, vocalist, and lyricist of a legendary heavy metal band called Metallica. One fine day, Metallica woke up and said, Dave Mustaine, you have to go. And Dave Mustaine went. But where did he go? He woke up the next day and formed another legendary band which sold 40 million records. That band is called Megadeth. And that's what I would do. Till date, Megadeth is the only one single challenger to Metallica. And that's how I would go down, or I would reinvent myself and rise again like the phoenix. That's what you all should also do. Keep at it, keep going strong, and keep listening to us because we have some awesome careers over here which are going to tell us about themselves, about their path, about their journey, and you can do it too. So stay with us. You are at Yuvaan e-RYLA 2021. Dhwani, over to you again.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Dr. Pranav Agrawal. It was great to have you here with us. Without further ado, I'm introducing our next speaker, Rishikesh Joshi. Rishikesh, are you there? Can you hear us?
Hello. I can hear you guys. Good to see you. I've been listening.
Yes, Rishikesh. A little bit about Rishikesh. He is the founder of Sports for All. He has demonstrated history of working in the sports industry. He is not only skilled in sports, but also its marketing, business development, and sponsorship as well. He holds a master's degree in sports management and information technology from Edith Cowan University. Rishikesh, welcome here today. I hope that everybody is going to enjoy the talk here. Our first question, what is Sports for All? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sports for All is it's a unifying platform for school sport that is going to provide equal access and equal opportunity to every athlete and every sport. What we are trying to do here is to be able to build a single unifying school sporting platform across India such that every athlete across every discipline of sport gets an equal playing field, and more so to be able to attract all the young kids to sport in their early experiences, such that they can eventually go ahead and represent India at the global sporting platforms. So I don't know if you guys have heard about the NCAA that is back there in America, which is the college sporting plat systems that they have. We are trying to build something for school sport pan India, such that no athlete ever misses out on an opportunity to participate.
Right. So tell us a little bit, about your journey, how it began, and how you, till now, how have you made SFA happen?
So SFA, I mean, it's very interesting to hear what Mr. Abhay said and what Mr. Pranav said, Dr. Pranav said a few minutes ago, and I was also trying to backtrack as to where my career started in sport, and all the experiences that you kind of absorb as a child. Yeah, so sports for all. I mean, I'll just connect that story back to my personal story because. So I think me, Dhwani, Gaurav, we all went to school together, and I think I know Dhwani for almost 35 years now. Uh, Maybe a little less, but yeah, 35 years now. But so as an athlete, as a young child in school, I mean, all we had was a basketball court, a handball court, and no real sports infrastructure or no specialist coaches, etc. I mean, but I was lucky enough to have a membership at a club. Uh, at that point in time, and my parents used to take me to the club every evening, and dad would play tennis, and I would kind of look around as a 5-6 year old, and the tennis court and swimming pool were close to each other. So one day I fell in the swimming pool at the age of 5, I think a little lesser than that, and I drowned in the pool. And that's when my mom is like, I'm not sending you back to that club again if you don't learn swimming. And so at the age of 5, I started to learn swimming just so that I could float. And that's really where my journey with sport began. At the age of 5, 6, I started learning, and then I started doing a little better. So my coaches told my parents that, why don't you take a little more interest? Why don't you invest a little more time behind the child? And the rest is history, because from that point onwards, from the time that I couldn't know how to swim, I went on to become a national level swimmer by the age of 16 or 17. And I think those 8 to 10 years of were my formidable years in trying to understand sport. I mean, I couldn't represent India eventually as a swimmer or as an athlete, but the experiences that something like that gave me were amazing. Because after that, I went on to study. We did science, and then I did engineering and information technology. But all along that, the remaining 10-12 years, I thought I was not at the right place, because I didn't understand anything about engineering in information technology. At the same time, chemistry, physics, maths, yes, we were decently good at it. I mean, I'm sure Dhwani knows I was not a failure or anything of that sort, but I was decently good at studies. But I knew that, somewhere down the line, if I could not become an athlete, there will be a place, where I could probably do something for sport. And then as young kids, we went out, to watch matches, the cricket matches that would come to the Wankhede Stadium and all of that. At that time, there were no, book my shows of the world where you could book a ticket and, very easily walk into a stadium. You have to faff around everywhere to try and see if you got a ticket. And that also was a ticket that you got in the black market. There was never really a box office or anything of that sort. So, all of these were pretty hard hitting experiences that you were absorbing in your subconscious as a child. And, and then when I would enter a stadium, I'm like, there must be somebody who's organizing this. There must be somebody who's managing, sport. So there has to be certain professional organizations doing that. And all along that journey up to the age of 20 or 22, all the different experiences that you gather with sport kind of kept telling me that, yes, this is a place that I want to be. This is something that I want to do. But, again, going back to Dr. Pranav's answer, saying that, yes, you do need formal training. You need to, eventually hone your skills to actually become a professional or to excel in that field. Even as an athlete, I mean, just because you run well does not mean you will go out there and win the Olympic gold for India. You will have to start training. You will have to start, channelizing all your efforts and energies towards that one thing that you want to kind of, crack in the world. And yeah, I mean, there are some movies that have inspired me big time. I mean, films like Laksh, or, films like Three Idiots, or all of those films are also very hard hitting. I mean, there was this very interesting line, a dialogue by Boman Irani in Laksh, where he was telling his son that, जो भी करो सबसे अच्छा करो, भले तुम सबसे छोटे घास काटने वाले बनो, पर सबसे अच्छे बनोगे तो तुम्हारी value है. Exactly what Mr. Abhay said, that there are plumbers and drivers, but they are, if you are a good plumber and a good driver, you are still up there.
True.
So I think all of that led me to, having this holistic understanding, and then formal training in sport, helped me get a job. I worked for 11 years before I started Sports for All. I worked at, the marathon, Procam International, which ran we did the first ever professional marathon that happened in Bombay city or in India, was done by that company, and I happened to run it. I ran that marathon, and the next thing I did was, let me find out where these guys work out of. And I walked into that office, and I'm like, give me anything and I will do, but I want a job in sport, because there was nothing back in sport 20 years ago. Today, there is, every institute, there are so many organizations in sport. There are so many colleges that are teaching sport, but 20 years back, there was nothing. So you had to literally find your way. And that is why I had to go to Australia to study. But so, yeah, coming back to how Sports for All started was all of these experiences. And then I worked at, an IPL franchise called Mumbai Indians. For about 8.5, 9 years, I worked in that franchise, and I learned a lot out there. I contributed a lot as well. But, and that's when I'm like, when I saw professional sport happening at these amazing standards, at international standards, and then when I connected them back to my experiences of sport as an athlete, they were shabby. I mean, when we played as kids, there was nothing out there. And when we see international athletes playing, you see that the world is, a red carpet for them. I'm like, why can't we bring those same experiences, or why can't we create a similar ecosystem for all the school kids of our country, so that, the aspirations become higher? And so, I mean, Sports for All is really, out of all the experiences that I have had as an athlete, and then, I had worked in professional sport and also studied sports management. So I think a combination of all of these three, made me start Sports for All. And, again, it's not something that started overnight. It's taken 20 years before you figured out what company you want to start. Because in a field like sport, it's not as simple as, or as glamorous as it is seen on TV. But yeah,
Right.
I think I hope I've answered your question. But
yes, we've been seeing a lot of Olympics these days. So I'd like to share with everybody that SFA is a very big part of the Olympics. How did that happen? If you can tell us how you managed to connect with the Olympics committee and how it all worked out for you.
So yes, I've been a part of this system, for the longest time. I've been in the sport industry. So to know people or to get connected with people was not the more difficult thing. But, to have Sports for All, a startup in India, which is only about 5 years old at this point in time, have a place in the elite sponsorship panel, where the JSWs and Amuls and Edelweiss capitals of the world are present, was a lot to do with what we have done over the last 5 years. I mean, obviously, we still had to pay money. We wanted to pay money because we wanted to support the Indian athletes that are present at the Olympics, but not everyone would get a chance to be out there on the list. So I think there's a lot of work that we did over a period of time. And when we started Sports for All, our tagline is Ab Jeetega India. The reason why we started is we want to see India on top of the global sporting map. And the only way that can happen is if India has a flourishing culture at the grassroots level or at the school level sporting ecosystems. And the relevance of what we do, the International Olympic Committee actually verified and validated what we do. And that is how the Indian Olympic Association, so the International Olympic Committee is the committee that promotes the Olympics. It's all the global federations or associations come under the International Olympic Committee, and they have to approve of certain parameters if you have to kind of make that cut. So I think we were working behind it for 2.5 years. It is also the fact that the Olympics got postponed by a year because of COVID. Otherwise, the partnership was already in place literally last year. If Tokyo 2020 would have happened, on its stipulated time, that was last year, August, September, we had already made the cut by then. So, I mean, it's just come to life now. And we hope that, more and more kids that come to the SFA or the Sports for All platform, we can help them or enable their journey in sport right from school level to the Olympic level, be it as athletes or as administrators. So yeah, I mean, very satisfying to be out there as India's first startup. Yeah.
Right. What does a sports manager actually do in his profession?
Okay. Okay, when I started off working at Mumbai Indians, right, there's a story to tell. But when I started off working at Mumbai Indians, the only job I was given was to pick up the players' bags, put them in the bus, or get them out of the dressing room, make sure that the players have got their clothes ironed. So literally to work with,
That is how you started. That is the scratch you started at.
That's after doing my master's in sports management. Okay.
Right.
So it was not even that I was completely raw or anything of that sort. But yes, we had to kind of make sure that, everything that if a player wanted a certain kind of a bread, I would go to the market and kind of get it. So that are the kind of odd jobs that I started of doing, because that is what was told for me to do. So for the first 4 or 5 months, of my time, I used to keep thinking कि यार इसके लिए पढ़ाई किया क्या मैंने मास्टर्स इन स्पोर्ट्स मैनेजमेंट किया, उसके पहले 3 साल का वर्क एक्सपीरियंस भी लिया ये प्रोग्राम मैराथन में, और अभी भी मैं बैग्स लिफ्ट कर रहा हूँ एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. But it's only slowly that I realized that how important it is for you to understand that lifting that one player's bag is eventually going to help you win the match, because you did not want that player to lift that bag and probably get injured walking down the steps with a 40 kg bag. But so you realize that every small effort that you made, and I was working for a sports team. See, there are various different places or various different verticals that you have to work in sport, right? When you work for a sports team, your job roles, the business activities or the business practices are very different from, say, working in the league. So if I worked for BCCI or for the IPL, my jobs would have been very different. It would not have been about dealing with players, but it would have been about dealing with teams. So there is a lot of so broadcast. Say if I work for Star Sports or if you work for Sony, for example, then your job roles would become very, very different. Right? Say if you are a player manager or an athlete manager, for example, then your job role is again very different. So there are various. So you can be working in sports events. Then you are working for an event management company that is working in sport. If you're working in broadcast, you are working, selling your ad spots to advertisers, or putting out that right content. So there are various different verticals. Sports is a very vast field, and then there are different levels that you work at. You probably work at grassroots sport, then you work at national level sport, then international level sport. In my case, I worked at international sport, and then I started a company in grassroots sport. So there are various different avenues out there. I mean, it's too vast a subject for 100 people to, I talk at length, but I'm happy if people write to me, I'll be happy to write back to all of them.
So I've put down your LinkedIn profile, obviously, for everybody to connect. So all you attendees today, all you students today aspiring to be in sports management, Rishikesh's LinkedIn is there. Any hardships?
In fact, at Sports for All, we run a I would like to tell it to this group of children out here that we run a very interesting program, which is literally, we get a set of 15 to 20 millennials, so to speak, that is between the age of 10 to 16. And we give them this most flourishing environment in office, because we are working with kids and kids sport as Sports for All. We're trying to improvise. So we always try and take a lot of inputs from all the kids that are out there. So in fact, schools like Jamnabai, Dhirubhai Ambani, even some DMC and government schools, we kind of take 2 or 3 kids out of each of them, so that we can learn from them, and at the same time we can add value to their lives in whichever way that we could. So I mean, you
Correct.
can write to us and we'll be happy to look at some of
Right.
them as well.
I have a speaker question. What are the hardships you face apart from the ones that you spoke? Is there anything specific you face that you'd like to share with all of us today?
Oh, hardships in sport are plenty, just like anywhere else. In fact, in an area which is not actually is not got industry status, right? Sports in the government of India has not got industry status, so it's not recognized as an industry and does not get the.
Correct.
So there are various challenges. First and foremost, you want to first figure out that, okay, what is it in sport that I want to do? Do I want to become an athlete or a coach or an administrator or run an academy? Then second, which sport, right? That's also a very important question that everyone needs to answer. That, okay, should I be working in cricket or football or basketball, or
Correct.
what is that thing that kind of excites me, makes me, wakes me up? Yeah, wakes me up every day, kind of a thing. And so hardships, I mean, when I got my job, initially there were no companies. So that was the first hardship, that where do I even go and pursue my dreams, which is no longer a challenge. Then I went to Australia to study, and I saw, there's the most amazing systems out there that prevailed in Australia. But my wife was like, you have to come back, because I was dating her at that time. So I think that was the second hardship. But I think that was a very good decision, because Indian sport in the last 15 years has grown tremendously.
Correct.
And then coming here, the hardship was this entire hardship of first finding a job and then sticking into that job, and then growing in that job. That was extremely,
especially in an industry unexplored. It's not like we saw our parents or our cousins or our friends being in the industry. It's a very unique place to be in.
Yeah, and the industry itself was learning, right? It was not that, sport already flourished and I was a new person. Sport in itself was new. So yes, and when I started off, right, I kept telling everyone, all my advisors or my people who used to guide me, saying that I want to work in sport. I don't want to work in cricket, or I don't want to work in football alone. I want to work in overall sport. But at that time, and it was the right advice for sure, but everyone came and told me that cricket mein kaam kar, kahin aur kaam karega to na kuch professional platform hai, na paisa kamayega. That's exactly why I started working in cricket. I learned all the best practices of cricket, and today with Sports for All, literally we're applying them to all the different disciplines of sport that are out there.
Correct.
So hardships are multiple, because I always tell everyone when they work in sports, saying that your passion is only equal to your persistence. You can't come and tell me that you are passionate and you love playing football and that's why you want to work in football and will make a career out there. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You've got to have a little bit of formal training. You need to understand what you're getting into. Today a lot of people go to companies without understanding what that company is all about. Just because they want a job, they get into these companies, they go for interviews, they can talk beautifully for 15-20 minutes and probably get that job, but without understanding what the company is actually doing, where it's earning its money from, and where are you going to get your job security from.
Absolutely.
So it's a combination of a lot of things, and I'm sure kids will learn it themselves, because I think one thing I would tell everyone is that as selfish as you can be, there's nothing better than being selfish, because it's not about being selfish in the wrong way. It's being selfish in the right way. I mean, even when everyone's working at SFA or wherever, I mean, I tell everyone, be selfish. Does not mean you're not working with your team, or you're not working for others, or you're not taking care of your family or your friends or your siblings. That's not selfishness. But selfishness is saying that, are you doing what you're doing for yourself first? And that will wake you up every day yourself.
Correct.
If you need people to motivate you, if you need people to inspire you, then that's not the right thing to do. You need to be you need to inspire yourself first. You need to have that reason to wake up every day and go to your job. Every day is not going to be exciting, new, unique. there are jobs that you will have to do, on a daily basis, but you should have that end goal in mind.
Correct.
I think that's what I would kind of say.
Right. So that answers Samara's question. One last question before we close today's session. It's from Stacy. It's a more, we want to know the fun part of working with the Mumbai Indians, the cricketers. Did anyone of the players ever tease you, or were they hard on you?
No, I mean, so I was also like this mad fan of Sachin Tendulkar, right, in our early years, and that's why I would go to the cricket matches and only see him, forget seeing the cricket or the matches or anything of that sort. I'd constantly see him. And the next thing I knew was, 8-10 years down the line, I got a job at Mumbai Indians, and Sachin Tendulkar is standing right in front of me and, asking me questions, asking me to guide him. I had no idea what's going on. I was spellbound. I couldn't say a word. I thought this is the last day of my job as well, because, I was here to do a job. So I think that was very exciting, because, we all grew up loving cricket, and, Sachin Tendulkar was God, is still God, and all of that. And when I got there, it was not just Sachin. Then you had, the galaxy of superstars that were at Mumbai Indians. And I think my biggest superstar after my first year at Reliance, who after Sachin became Mukesh Ambani, because just to understand the scale and the magnitude of how he's kind of built Reliance, and what Sachin Tendulkar meant to me was also, I think, fantastic. So you learned a lot. You loved that 2 pieces of glamour, because those 2 months of the IPL, I was the most popular person in my entire fraternity or industry or family or anything, because everyone wanted to know what's happening. I lost my identity. For those 5-7 years, no one spoke to me as Rishi. Everyone spoke to me as how's Mumbai Indians, how's Sachin Tendulkar, how's Mukesh Ambani. That was the only conversation. That also fried me a little, but it was, I think, the most amazing thing. I mean, from that first day of, not being able to say a word to Sachin, 8 years later, he becoming a friend, and, I mean, it's surreal. Till date is surreal. But in fact, one of the first people that I discussed the idea of sports for all was also with him. And, he was like, this is the right thing to do. So, I mean, so it was brilliant. Yeah. And also playing in some of the stadiums myself. I mean, the players didn't bully me, because I was supposed to do work for them, so I was treated extremely well by all of them, because if I wasn't around, they wouldn't have gotten the bare basics of being able to play on that cricket field.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, amazing experiences, the best stadiums to see, the best stadiums you could get to play in when the nets were on, and
great.
So yeah, it's fantastic.
Fantastic to know about your journey, Rishikesh. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. I know we're friends from almost more than 35 years, but having you here is such a proud moment to see a friend being at such a great platform. For everybody here today, I've put Rishikesh's LinkedIn details, and you can connect with him for any question related to sports and sports management. He's the guy for you. Thank you so much, Rishi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So up next is a dear friend, charter president of the club, Gaurav Sathe. Rishi and I actually studied together in the same school, in the same standard. So we have him here today introducing Mr. Jiten Bhagat. So over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Dhwani. Thank you. Hi, everybody. And Rishikesh, hi. That was fantastic. Thanks. Brilliant to see 100 people here on a Sunday morning, and so great that we're talking about careers and talking about doing great things. I'm very lucky to introduce and our next speaker is Jiten Bhagat, another dear friend. One of the things I'll prompt here is, we are so lucky to have friends that have gone on to do such great things. So kids, as you all are young right now, you also must cherish the sort of friendship that you're building with your fraternity, because these are the guys that are going to be the next gold medalists in Olympics, the next sports for all leaders, the next chefs, the next MBAs and what have you. So do enjoy the friendship that you all are building along your college, along your profession. Let me come to Jiten. Jiten is a dear friend. He's a star from the advertising industry. Uh, just here a few brands: FedEx, Mahindra Scorpio, Pantene, Toyota, Canon, Essenza Devils, Fiamma Devils, Vivel, Hero Motorcorp, Indian Oil, Post Motors, Ultratech Cement, Saffola, Kotak Mahindra, Spencer's Retail. The list goes on and on. These are iconic brands. These are massive brands. And there's a reason why they have a recall value with each one of us. There's a lot goes behind the scenes to build this brand up. And one of the contributors has been my dear friend Jiten Bhagat, who's also our speaker today. Jiten, great to have you on board. Welcome. It's a pleasure. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Great to have you, Jiten. So Jiten is a marketing and communication professional. He's been doing this for 22 years, guys. He's been pan-India. He's done things from brand planning, development, integrated communication strategies, new product development, innovation, been a CEO of a company. And through this life, I think his base through his bachelor's of commerce, BCom, postgrad in business administration, and his Institute of Technology for Management. Some of the agencies he's worked at, these are some of the top agencies in the world: Gray Worldwide, Draft FCB Ulka, Leo Burnett, L&K Saatchi and Saatchi, Percept, Hakuhodo, and Ad Factors Communication. Some of the top agencies. One last thing, he's now running a marketing solutions company, One Red Fish. In fact, I happen to be a very happy customer of Jiten's as well. He helps me in my branding and my sort of building communications, and so does Dhwani, by the way. So you'll just start seeing how working closely with good people starts helping each other. Anyway, not wanting to take 1 minute away from Jiten. Jiten, over to you. We want to know a bit of your journey and some of the inside of building such great brands, please.
Hi, great to see everybody. Got 100 participants on a Sunday morning. Wow. To start with, Gaurav, I'm going to use you for all my pitches. Such an introduction. I think one needs, you to go out there and just introduce me to everybody. And next thing we know, without even marketing, we'll get that job. So thank you. It's, I really want, while yes, I've been part of all those brands and I've been part of all those, companies. I think, it's the journey that really, what it's about. So yes, 22 years, guys, that might sound and make me look old, but I'm not really that old. Started, I kind of finished my BCom and got into my MBA and kind of just started working straight off. So the journey really has been really interesting. I always wanted to be in advertising since the early developmental years in college. Always participated in those, little events or college shows or college fests, and really was, fascinated at some point in time with, a lot what you ended up seeing on TV. We had only a few channels back then, and maybe it was, those few things that kind of led me on. So I think I was clear in terms of what I wanted to do. And that's really, one interesting point that, all the kids right now should, get into is some form of clarity in terms of where we want to go. That doesn't mean that you cannot, go into a different stream or something, but, it's always good to have a bit of clarity to say, this is the zone I want to go, whether it's sports or whether it is advertising, whether it's marketing, whether it's anything, engineering, whatever we do. So yeah, the journey was, great. It, it's like, in fact, I was on when, the earlier speaker was there, Rishikesh, and, I think what he spoke, was exactly everybody's journey. We all started out at that level where, so my story is similar. You get to, you get to your first job and you're in this, company, which the world kind of is looking up to, one of the hottest creative agencies back in the day. And you've done your MBA in marketing and, you're walking in with this shirt and tie and everything. And in the first few days, you're told, okay, we've got a pitch coming or a presentation coming up. We need you to go to the guys who made slides. So, you know, back in the day, the computer PowerPoint scene was just hitting in, and everybody still presented off slides. So we had to go to, back in the day, there was a setup called Dinodia and Vadia Graphics, and so I spent my first 3 nights till 4 a.m. in the morning making slides for somebody who I had to kind of give the perusal to the next day. And I didn't know what happened in that meeting, because you were far too junior to kind of go for that meeting, but that's what you did, and so what it does really, and that's the journey, and that's the, that's how it all starts. You end up, and there's a reason for why you do that, because the first 1 year is largely about whatever you need to learn. So you learned everything from, how things are made, how things get, at the operational level, what happens. But and everybody asks, how does that help? You did your MBA and after that you did this. But what really happens is, as the years go by, as time goes by, and as you kind of grow, into the profession, go up the ranks, you start to realize that what you learn comes into play. So one, nobody can take you for a ride. 2 is you exactly know what the process is, and how much time it's going to take, and how much what's going to happen. So that kind of holds a lot, because as you go further in, when you start giving commitment, especially on brands, or when you're trying to push brands, to what level you can take it. So so the journey has been one of you learned a lot, and then as you kind of started going up the ranks, you started going from one place. So if the first couple of years was about operations management, then you kind of got into the whole strategy piece. You started figuring out how brands work. There's a lot that happens to brands when you look at it from the outside, and what goes at the inside. How do you build brands? What goes into it? So it's, and then you kind of just keep learning from one, and then you kind of just go from one brand to another, and you get experience across them. So whether it's a personal care brand or a car brand, you kind of learn different things. So and frankly, the journey still continues. So and the fun is in the journey, because you don't think you've learned everything. You haven't, because as you think, and let's put it this way, we all thought we had kind of learned everything and things were fine, and lo and behold, 2020 pandemic happens, and you're like, what happened here? So you kind of unlearned whatever you learned, and then started learning some new things. And a session like this would have been a great session on a Sunday morning in a nice hall, with probably some lovely tea and snacks. And what are we doing? A new way of learning, which is conference.
Absolutely. Would have been awesome to be there in person, hopefully in a few months.
Definitely.
Jitin, can you give us a piece on what goes in behind the scenes in an agency? What are the kind of roles available in terms of job or a career? And some insight on that, please.
Yeah. So, here's the great part about, वो एक हिंदी में कहावत है ना कि कोई दांत दिखाने वाले होते हैं और कोई दांत खाने वाले होते हैं. So, from the outside, advertising is this, man, I want to be in advertising, and you guys must be like, in the scene, and you all guys meet models every day, and beautiful women and parties and things like that, and everybody's like, hey, I want to get into advertising for that. Yeah. Get into your first day of advertising, and then you'll know what a nice smoke screen that was. So yeah, behind the scenes, it's very, very different. And not to say that that bit doesn't happen. It happens in its own way, but it is different, because see, at what you end up seeing is the advertising in the form of a commercial that you ended up seeing on TV, or a print ad that you saw, or something that happened out there. But really, there is a strategy that goes behind all that. So here's what advertising is, something that what you can do. You can either enter the field and be a client servicing professional. What does that really mean? That really means that you are now basically going to run that particular brand or that particular business. Yeah, so you're going to be the custodian of it. You're going to be the person who talks to the client. You're going to be the person who kind of makes sure that everything that's happening on the brand is kind of taken care of by you. The second part of it, which is the next stream that you kind of get into, is the whole brand planning angle. So that really means that you're going to kind of strategically look into, what goes behind the whole strategy of a brand. Yeah. So what is going to be your go-to-market effort? What is going to be things that you will do for that brand too? So you can then go, then you specifically concentrate on planning or strategy for the brand. After that, you can really get into the field of creative. Now, again, this is vast, so I'm not kind of going to go into the details, but in the creative field, again, there are various things that you can do. So if you are good at writing, okay, you can actually become a copy person. You can actually write content. You can write scripts. If you're good at art, whether it's fine art, commercial art, etc., you can get into the whole thing and do art. So, and then of course, there is the whole digital angle to, things where, again, from a digital point of view, like we said, I mean, digital today is so vast. And again, we just touch upon what can, so you can actually get into the whole social media part of it. You can get into SEO management. You can get into the whole digital marketing side. And then of course there is the side of media, which is, which is where all the money conversations really happen. So all this work might happen while people might create their ads and, think about them and, put up brands there, but finally you have to have the right media plan so that your target audience is able to see what you've done. Because, after doing all this, if you're not going to be on the right channel for your target audience, nobody's even going to know what you did. So these are, broadly the kind of fields that you can jump into. Within this, there are umpteen number of those little, smaller streams within this you could choose. So these are broad, but yeah, happy to kind of get into the details, maybe on a one-to-one or another forum where which part kind of will suit a particular person and what are the different forms, within each to get into. So yeah, so these are kind of a little bit about what you can choose to do from a, advertising perspective. One little bit that I've missed out is probably the production angle to advertising too, where normally that's not part of an agency, but agencies end up hiring production houses. Those are the guys that help you put the entire TVC or the photography together. So while that might not be a part of the agency, that's also a very connected field. So those guys are the guys who kind of, help you make the commercial, help you get it out there. They'll shoot it for you along with their team, and you all have been seeing the content. I mean, OTT is a great example of, what is the content that they kind of create. So yeah.
So out of all these, Jitin, which one did you end up doing the most, and why did you get drawn towards that field?
So, so I also realized I'm not like, everybody wants to be creative, but everybody should start realizing, are they creative or no? So yeah, will you ask anybody, are you creative? Yeah, everybody thinks they're creative. Everybody thinks they can write headlines and body copy and all that. But no, so I definitely didn't take the creative the stream because, I think by then I had committed myself to marketing. Took up the necessary course to kind of get into the whole marketing side of it. So the natural progression for me was to kind of get into the client servicing role. And then again, the natural progression that happens as you kind of start going up the ranks is from being the custodian of the brand to kind of start strategizing on it. So you kind of move from client servicing into the whole, brand strategy, until you get to a point where then you become general management. So, then lo behold, you kind of become a vice president or, go higher up there. And then you're not a department anymore. Then you're responsible really for everything that happens. So if the client is not happy or the brand is not able to kind of deliver on a few things, you have to step in to figure out which department comes into play. And, there have been times when, whether you're creative or no, you've sat down and written the entire copy yourself or, the script yourself, because maybe you've understood it a little better than somebody else has. So once you kind of reach a point, then your general management, and then you're playing all the roles, literally all the roles. Then
Can you tell us some of the best anecdotes where you had a lot of fun or something you enjoyed the most?
You know, lots actually, because the fun of advertising or marketing, and there's, so yeah, I mean, while I've given you the hardships and what really happens behind the scenes, guys, advertising is a lot of fun. There is no doubting that to start with. To start with, I remember walking in with shirt, tie, and whatever in the first few days, and everybody looked at me like I had come from Mars. And they said, "What is this? Nobody wears this," and then the next thing you started doing is addressing somebody as Mr. or Sir, and then they again looked at you saying, so back in the day they didn't say bro, but yeah, if they were to say it, they would say, "Bro, call me by my first name." And it didn't matter what age that guy was or how senior he was, you kind of had to get down to calling him by first name. So it is a nice informal setup. Nobody kind of makes you, it's not like a stuffy corporate, if I can call them that. So yes, there is a lot of fun. Yes, you do enjoy yourself a lot, but it's back in the day, like, yes, did we go out? Yes, there were a lot of media parties, and we went out and met a lot of friends and other people from the agency. And that time, of course, there were no lockdowns, and then there were no nights that had to be no pub shut at 1:15 back in the day. So you guys missed out on that. But yeah, guess what? Next morning, 9:30, we were back at our table. We were back working. Because we knew that there is a responsibility that we have towards what we do. So did we have fun? Of course, we had a lot of fun. But then the responsibility kind of came. But yeah, I mean, couple of things that you really kind of learned. So I still remember this one incident. Probably happened easily about 15, 18 years back. And this is a kind of great learning for everybody, because for me, one of the things that I learned is the devil is in the details. So and that's one thing that as you get into any profession, whether it's advertising or whatever, the detailing is really what it is. So I still remember I was going through a particular ad or whatever, and I looked at it and I kind of kept it down, and I told my senior, "It's done. I think it's fine. It's good to go." And then he picks up the ad and he says, "No, there is a comma missing. There is a full stop missing." And I'm like, "Good Lord, what's happening here?" And that's when I actually learned, and that's what he taught me, and it still remained with me to this day, is you don't look for what is right in the ad, okay, or a piece of communication. You look for what is wrong. So the eye has to be trained to look for what is wrong, because everybody is reading the right. Okay, everybody will pick up the ad and see if if the sentence is starting with the, or there is no and too many commas or whatever. But the point is, are you looking at what is wrong? So you have to start looking at it, something saying that isme galat kya hai, and start with that. So so the devil is in the details. Whether you like it or no, you have to really get into it. Two is, there was a very interesting conversation that happened actually with a client of mine. This was a client of mine in Kotak Securities. And, my art partner and me have gone to present this brochure to her. And she looks at it and says, "Looking nice, etc., etc. All looks good. However, this is not the color we chose." And I'm like, I know, and this is back in the day when you actually did physical proofs. So now everything is digital. But back in the day, you actually did proofs and you went back to the client showing them what the color looked like. So she says, "This is not the color we chose." So I said, "No, it is. We've done the proof, and we've got your okay on the earlier one, etc., etc." And and this is, so then this is when I look at my art partner who's sitting very quiet, and I'm like, "Sham, isn't this the color?" And he says, "Nahi, thoda badla hai maine." I'm like looking at him and saying, "Here we're presenting something to the client," and he's like, हाँ थोड़ा बदला है मैंने क्योंकि वो थोड़ा अच्छा नहीं दिख रहा था. So and I'm like looking at him, looking at her, and naturally we have messed up on that particular color. She wanted mustard, we've gone more yellow. That was the kind of thing. And so she looks at us and said, it's not that it's not looking good, but this is not what we chose. So I'm like, okay. Then came in, the learning for life, because she looked at me, she knew I was frazzled. She looked at me and she said, Jiten, don't worry, we're all humans, we make mistakes. So I'm like, wow, what a client to have. Here is a client who says, we are human, we make mistakes, wonderful. But then the cookie crumbles in the next line, and that's where the learning is. So she says, you're humans and we make mistakes. The next line came in as, but somebody's got to pay for it. So, and this is back in the day when a proof of a leaflet or a booklet costed the agency or the client 20,000 to do, and 20,000 18 years back, lots of money. And you knew the moment she said that you had to go back and now explain to your senior, your department, your whatever, that this proof is not going to be paid by the client. It's going to be now funded by the agency. And so these are those little interesting things. So yes, the detailing part of it, making sure that and the second anecdote is also about detailing, that I assume that my art partner went with the flow, but and so all that is part of it, but this kind of stayed with you for life. So now whenever I look at anything, whether it's a presentation or anything that is going out, there is that double check, 4 times check that really one does to say that you can't mess it up. These are learnings. So yeah.
In our conversations, Jiten, you also told me that each brand has a certain culture and a certain way they talk. For example, a certain brand would never say a point blank no. They were taught not to say no, and they would put it nicely. Can you give a couple of these examples? Because it will be awesome for the kids.
Yeah. So I'll give you 2 examples. Let me start with the one that is which does not know what to say. So you always have some of these clients, and when you go to the client and you're showing them the ad and you put your full passion and you giving them the gyan that has gone behind the ad, and then they look at the ad and say, "Was jama nahi?" And so that's a response that you get, "Jama nahi." I mean, there were times when I just wanted to reply and say, "Dahi nahi hai yaar, ye ad hai, jamega nahi." So but you kind of got to hold yourself back. And
also you get that maza nahi aa raha hai one, right?
The other one is maza nahi aa raha. I mean, what maza do you expect? This is a piece of communication that you're putting out for a TG. What do you expect? Maza nahi aa raha. So you really don't know what to do for that. But that's when you really kind of have to. That's when your entire skill or knowing your client or knowing your brand comes in, because either you can stand there and refute it and say, but your brand stands for this, and that's exactly what you brought out in the communication, and and stand for the brand and tell the client that what you've done is right. And then of course it's a choice that he needs to make. But yeah, so there are comments like this. On the other hand, you have clients like a Procter and Gamble, who I worked for a lot in my life, who are taught, okay, and now actually a lot of clients in the corporate world have been put through this training. They are taught never to say I did not like it, or I don't like it, or no. Okay, they are taught. So if we went with a piece of communication that we wanted to kind of show them, they firstly will always start with a positive pat, saying that thank you for coming back to us, and we really appreciate what you've done, etc., etc. And then they get into the thing. But and that you learned this only over time. There were 2 words you kind of looked out for. So if they like a piece of communication, but that they want to change a few things around, they would say that we like it, but there is a little issue here. So you have to catch on to the word called issue, because issue means okay, few things here and there, and then we'll kind of change it. And then you have to actually catch on to the other word, which actually means that go back to the drawing table. So if they end up saying that we like what we're saying, but we have a concern. Concern means quietly end the meeting, say thank you very much, go back, drawing table, and get down to a fresh thought, because they are not going to say that we didn't like it and please go back. You got to kind of understand it. So yes, the moment you kind of heard concern from a senior enough client, you kind of in your own way try to understand what they meant and kind of go back to the table. So these are but yeah, so you always had clients that said nahi jama and maza nahi aaya, and kuch yaar kuch dum leke aaya. Yeah, again, I really didn't know what to say for things like that. And then of course you had clients that really got into the specifics and discussed it at length on what to do, and then pieces of communication were there to see. So yeah, so these are the interesting parts, and then again, you kind of learn from them, you kind of grapple. You also then try to make the other client who says maza nahi, dum nahi, to kind of understand, to probably sit with them and tell them that this is how our process is and this is what we think on
the story behind it, etc.
So it's a
makes
process,
sense.
but it helps.
Incidentally, so a quick question for our young friends out there who want to pursue a career in advertising. Two questions: how do they judge whether they have the aptitude for it? And number two, how do they go about entering this advertising field? What sort of education should they pursue, or how do they go up the ladder and pursue this as a profession?
So so different, so it's always going to be different strokes for different folks. See, one, you've got to kind of figure out what of the advertising parts you want to play a role in. Okay, so one, if you want to play the creative role and you think you have something in you, then you kind of hone in your skills then throughout college. So if it is art, for example, then you try to an art school, or you try to learn how best to kind of hone in your art skills. If you think you write copy well, or you think you have a nice approach to writing, then you kind of again hone in your skills then in your learning. You try and do things with literature, you try and do things from a scripting point of view, you try and do things there. So those are the creative parts where kind of you then have to kind of hone in your skill sets. When it comes to the the strategy or the servicing part, really it's or even the media part, that's a more classical approach, where you probably finish your college, do your marketing. If you want to do your post graduation, today post graduation is, is a chart, so it's a thing that you should do, because that kind of helps you. So yes, you do it, you get into that field, and then you jump into either one of those electives that you end up taking, which is servicing, branding, digital, whatever have you. And and then the rest is actually learning through the ropes, then is actually trying to really then get into how does that entire thing work, from an agency perspective, from a company perspective, and then you kind of take it forward. So yeah, so you either continue with like a marketing degree, master's degree, or you get onto the creative side of life, which will help you in copy, art, production, making of commercials, and that's a separate kind of field. So you can go to film schools. If you really want to get into director, there are film schools, you learn in that. Or if you want to be a photographer, you kind of go and be an assistant to photographers, learn that entire thing, get down to going to a photography school, or you kind of so it's again different for different people. Yeah. But again, it's vast out there, so again requires another session to kind of.
Awesome, completely agree. We cannot cover this in one go. Jitin, it would be great if you can put down your connects on the chat, so that people who want your help can seek it through maybe LinkedIn or your Facebook handles, etc. But it was a wonderful session. I'm sure it got a lot of insights, and I'm sure we've got great advertising minds raring to go now.
Thank you. It was great fun. And again, to actually have so many guys wanting to hear us on a Sunday morning is fabulous. And, great to you guys too. Yeah, because I was part of the entire session before, and, to get people from different fields, even it was interesting for, me to hear what the earlier gentleman had to say or what Doc had to say. It was nice to kind of hear, what's happening around, and it's learning for us too. So it's not only learning for the kids who are kind of getting into it, but a lot of stuff for us too. Yeah. So thank you.
No, awesome. It's been great having you, and this was awesome. And the Dahi Jamega line will stay with all of us.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jitin, and over to Dhwani.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jitin. Thank you, Gaurav. I'm moving on to introducing our incoming, or what we call here, President-elect, Namrata Shah. She's here today with us, and she's going to take on the next session as the moderator. And over to you, Namrata, and welcoming Praveer as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm architect Namrata Shah, and joining us here, as Dhwani has just mentioned, is in fact my friend and a colleague whose work I truly admire. He's the founder and principal architect of Studio Hinge, a multidisciplinary design firm based in South Bombay. We have that common connect. And he graduated in architecture at Rachna Sansad and went on to pursue his master's in architecture at Bartlett School of Architecture, UCL, London. He has won numerous awards for excellence in the field of architecture and interiors, including the prestigious and coveted AD 100. He was also the Asian contender for the top 4 finalists vying for the World Youth Designer 2018. I've had the opportunity, in fact, to teach, architecture design with him for a couple of semesters at the Balbanchad School of Architecture. And, frankly, I've been quite in awe of his ability to break down and simplify very complex subjects or complex theories for the students. So on this note, please join me in welcoming Praveer Sethi of Studio Hinge. Hi, Praveer.
Hi, Namrata. Thanks so much. I hope I can live up to your glowing introduction. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah. So Praveer, can you tell us a bit more about yourself, apart from this illustrious profile that I've just kind of read out? You want to add something to it?
Sure. I mean, I'll start with the part that no one likes to get into first, but I'm 41 years old. I have lived almost all my life in Mumbai. I spent a few years abroad. I spent 1 year abroad as an exchange student under the Rotary Youth Exchange Program. When I was 15, 16, I was lucky enough to be hosted by 3 wonderful families in Canada. And I would heartily recommend it to anybody, Rotarian or not. If you have kids, if you want them to gain an international exposure, understand how things work in a global sense, and make friends that you will be with forever. Youth exchange program is a great way to go, guys. Sorry, that's my plug. That's my pitch for something totally aside, but it was really impactful and it was a great experience. So that was 1 year I lived away, and another 5.5 years I lived away. I went to school in South Bombay. I went to college here. I did my architecture at the Rachna Academy of Architecture, also in Bombay. And I then moved on after a year of work experience. I worked with Samira Rathod for a year post-graduation. We'll come back and talk about the internship later if you like. But I interned with a couple of people along the way, including PG Patki, Samik Padora. And these are all, at least in the fraternity, quite well-known names now. A year after I graduated, I went to the UK to do a master's degree at the Bartlett. And I did that master's degree. I worked there for about 4.5 years, and then slightly delayed, but in keeping with the overall intent, I came back to India. And I've been here since 2009 now, out of which the first 4 years almost were spent working with various practices. Well, 2 practices. I worked with Ratan Baki Boy Architects, and I worked with Sanjay Puri Architects as an associate. Left there and started up shop on my own in early 2014. So, and that sort of brings us up to speed, leaving out the juicy bits, but yeah.
Okay, so, as you just mentioned that, it was like a very interesting journey for you, but if you can help us, just expand a bit on the transition from a student life, what happens with us as students, and when you transition into the real world or the professional world, I mean, right, where suddenly your perspectives change and you're possibly not prepared for a lot of things that come your way. So if you could just quickly expand a bit on that.
I think I can't speak with the same level of experience for other professions, but I think certainly in our profession, there's no college that I know of that adequately prepares you for what real world practice is like. And I think, we've had conversations about this, Amita, and the times that we've taught, we've been involved with colleges. Maybe at our own level, we've tried to change that, but we were also dealing with the kind of rarefied, conceptual subject of architectural design. So that's great. But in terms of the real world, and in particularly true in a city like Mumbai, where you have this tremendous pressure on land and everything is very profit and developer led, stepping out of college and into the real world, or even into an internship, feels a bit like Alice going down the rabbit hole kind of situation, because there's many realities about it that you aren't prepared for. One of them being, just to touch on a few things, whether it's detailing of how a building actually comes together. The construction technology that we learned, at least in college in our time, was stuff that was being taught in the 50s still. So I didn't find, and I believe that's changed. I do think that has with technology and improvement and modernization. So kids in college these days aren't learning, joinery and construction technology in the same syllabus that we were, which is a great relief to me. But also in terms of costing, how do you put numbers together for what a building or an interior will cost? We don't really do much of that in college at all. And we don't do much about approvals or building permissions or statutory requirements at all either, So it's very focused on design. I would say there's a bit of history and theory and criticism and so on. And yes, you do learn about structural design, and yes, you do learn about estimation and costing, but the knowledge is very perfunctory. Or whether it's building services, whether it's mechanical and electrical services that go into a building. So these are all allied fields that we need to speak intelligently about when we come out in the real world, because there are specialized consultants for those fields. We do deal with structural engineers, we do deal with electrical consultants, but we need to guide them, as in terms of, because as architects, and again, we'll touch on this later. I think I'm over answering your question as usual, but we are expected to be the leaders of a design team. And we need to know enough about the work of the other disciplines in order to, to intelligently guide them to the result that we're looking for.
Yeah,
so there's
absolutely.
a lot. I know that I have friends in Europe, for example, who've been to colleges where one of the things that is mandatory is that you have to spend, I think particularly in Germany, you have to spend 6 months in the field working with your hands in a trade. So you can pour concrete, you can do carpentry, you can lay bricks, you can weld steel, or join plumbing pipes or whatever. But having done that for 6 months gives you an unparalleled perspective on how things actually come together physically. And we are, let's face it, in the business of assembling buildings, mostly in the physical world. There's a whole parallel architectural movement where you have architects who have never built in physical world and have great virtual designs. But we're speaking of traditional architecture here, and it's definitely useful to know how two pieces of wood join together, or how many what the consistency is of concrete when you need to pour it into a formwork, for example. So I do feel that colleges are very under preparing us, for the real world, to answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from the time I remember when we were back in college, we used to make physical models. And colleges nowadays, they are okay with just, modeling on software. And suddenly the sense of scale and perspective is very, very skewed, that the students aren't really able to get a grasp on what scale is. So
I think the last 1.5 years has almost necessitated that, because physical models were just trickier to present online,
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming to your, if there is one, like, do you believe in any single core ideology as far as our profession is concerned? Like, do you have a personal ideology towards our field?
There's a couple of things that keep in mind. I don't know if they're particular to our profession, but they're my views on it. I think you have to be true to yourself, sure, which sounds like a big cliche, but you also have to be true to your client, because what happens with see, traditionally with architects, we are endowed with these humongous egos, you know. Sorry, I should have silenced that phone. We're endowed with these egos, which means that we end up thinking that we know what's best. And let's face it, like quite often that is the case, that we have been engaged on a project because the client is respectful of our knowledge or experience and therefore is relying on us for advice. And that's not new, that's the case with any consultant, you know. But with our particular kind of consultancy, it's not just scientific, it's not just objective. There's a lot of subjectivity thrown in. And there's a lot of a sense of how do I give this person the ideal product to lead the ideal life, you know, because buildings or interiors are basically built for people, which is something that we sometimes, I feel these days, tend to forget. We think that they're built for Instagram or website photographs, you know. Right. And we are all, I think, a little bit in danger of tailoring our design to get that perfect picture frame shot. Right? Now that's great, but to me, what should resonate with us more is when a client comes back to you and tells you how happy he is to live in that space, right? Absolutely. Or to work in that space, or to pray in that space, or eat, or whatever it was, right? But even more intriguingly, and this happens often, and I'm sure you've seen it, you've designed something, you've imposed this sort of vision of how life ought to be led upon your client, hopefully taking into account their brief and so on, but sometimes brushing it aside, sometimes overriding it, saying, look, guys, I know you want this, but you actually ought to want this, you know, and that's how you really should be living. And we create this, and we go back to these sites sometimes for, you know, you can call it a post-occupancy survey, or sometimes it's just a client who's turned into a friend and you go back for a visit, or sometimes you just go back to give service or advice on something. And you find that they've changed things around, you know. And so, you know, maybe they were just waiting for you to take your ego and exit the premises. And then they've shifted the table around to where you didn't want it. And they put the chair where you didn't think it had the best view. And, you know, but it's their house and it's their prerogative, and they will do that, you know. And then you'll come back for your photo shoot and rearrange it all again. But you know what I'm speaking of. So I think when you stay true to yourself, yeah, sure, you do in theory know better than your client, but don't try to tell them how they should live. Right. You know, fair enough. Or if you do and they are still not getting it, or they still don't subscribe to that, I don't think one tries to impose our views too much. That's one thing. And the second thing I would say is that, you know, I guess it ties in a little bit with the first, but as architects, we're very much in danger of taking ourselves too seriously all the time. And this is something, you know, and I don't mean just in terms of a holier than thou attitude, but, you know, I think we also believe that architecture as a profession or as a physical construct has a great power to induce social change, for example. You know, and of course, here we are talking about projects that go beyond residential interiors and office interiors and so on, but a building in the public realm can actually create a very meaningful impact on the lives of those, not just who live in it, but the lives of those who work and live around it and pass it. You know, it can instill a sense of pride. It can, in some cases, we've seen it be the spark for regeneration of an entire neighborhood which was run down. You know, there's one great building that comes up there and it pulls the whole area up. It brings in tourists, turns around the fortunes of a city. So there is no doubt that change for architecture to, or that potential for architecture to generate change. And it's a grave responsibility when you're working at that scale. But, you know, at the end of the day, I also feel like we need to let go a little bit the ego of the God complex and say that we are actually also just human beings, and, you know, let's not take ourselves that seriously.
Very well said. Indeed, I agree with you, because I think that's something that we, at some point, consciously or subconsciously, we do land up suffering from that God complex in the field. So, okay, you know, since we've been teaching and you've taught at other institutes as well, can you expand a bit on what are the different avenues available for students? Like, since we've mentioned in our earlier talks that, you know, architecture as a field or a profession opens up a vast array of, you know, job options or, you know, career options for the student who's taken up this profession, because it's a 5-year intensive course, right?
Yes.
So if you can just quickly touch upon the alternatives, and I don't mean only intending towards architecture, but even the ones which are, so to speak, not related to architecture at all.
So, I think for most laymen, it's a very perfunctory understanding of what architecture actually involves. They say, you also do interiors. And I said, yes, generally we perceive it as interior design being sort of subset of architecture, right? That it's part of the course that we study, just like, for example, landscape design. Now, does that make you a specialist in landscape? Probably not. Does doing interior design for a couple of years in architecture school make you a specialist in interiors? Look, I don't think you're a specialist at anything when you come out of architecture school, really. But as you rightly said, it just opens a lot of other doors. So, for example, let's talk of interior design, which you and I have also been practicing quite extensively. Particularly in the city where we live, in Mumbai, the scope for new architecture is quite limited because, as we mentioned earlier, there's this intense pressure on land. So you tend to, if you're practicing architecture in Mumbai, be dealing with either redevelopment projects, because there are very few what we call greenfield sites. So there are very few barren or virgin plots of land which are ready to build on, right? What tends to happen is you have this model where existing building is torn down. The people who live in it are given flats or rehabilitated, as the word goes, and then in exchange for that, the builder gets additional area to then build and sell on the private market. Without going into that model, the point is that there's not very much scope, or you're building in Karjat or Alibag, or you're doing a second home or a family home, a country home for someone on the outskirts of Bombay. So it's very rare that you're going to get to do an institutional building or a private home within the city limits of our city, at least. Right? So interior design becomes a very natural first option for many young architects coming out of college, because that sort of work is just much more readily available. People still live in homes which need to be refurbished. They could be requiring to be refurbished because they're not fit to live in, or they could be required to be refurbished because I have a different aesthetic sensibility or a different lifestyle than the previous owner of the house that I bought from. So that's the obvious one, of course, interior design, but also product design, and industrial design, which is sort of similar to product design, really. So product design would include things like, well, any product you can think of, but things like lighting, furniture. Lighting design, again, is a whole allied discipline. My wife actually is a lighting designer. She studied to be an architect, worked in the field for 2 or 3 years, got actually bored by how slowly things move, and said, I can't wait so long from a project from concept to completion, and jumped ship, went to one of the best schools in the world to study lighting design, and is now accomplished lighting designer. She also makes movies. So she's a very good personification of what we're talking about, or to answer your question. So yeah, I studied architecture, but now I do lighting design and I make short films. Great. As someone I know, this is actually a very interesting question, because when we were in first year and basic design, which is, as the name would suggest, not even connected with architecture, it's just basic, almost 3-dimensional graphic design. And our professor, who was a slightly kooky guy at the time, said, guys, don't think you're all going to come out of this college and be practicing architects. Most of you will not, or half of you will not. And we were all a bit alarmed, and he said, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, one of the girls went on to design cake boxes, right? Or gift boxes. And, it's a very niche field, but one that we're seeing more and more people interested in now, as presentation becomes more and more important, So I'd also like to touch on this idea of, design thinking, which is a very rapidly growing field in service provision, in retail, in, even things like, for example, customer service. So what is design thinking really? Design thinking is the ability to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're designing for. So you approach the problem in a whole different way, right? It also involves taking off the architectural hat, maybe leaving behind the God complex a bit, and going to look at, if I were to live here, how would I like to wake up in the morning? What would I like to see? What should be the route from my bedroom to my kitchen, etc., etc. So it's really trying to do that. Now, this may sound like a fairly simple idea, but in the last decade or so, it's one that's been gaining a lot of mileage in a lot of allied, or not even allied, like I said, like customer service. People who call up, let's say on behalf of a telephone company or an electronics company, are designing their customer service experience using design thinking, right? So there's two aspects to the design thinking. One is, of course, being able to put yourself in the other shoes. The other is an approach to problem solving, which is non-linear, right? So when you say non-linear, what do you mean? It means that it can be in more than one direction. You can think of an unconventional approach. And this is so true of design, that that if you are given a brief by a client and I'm given a brief by a client, we could both come up with great pieces of architecture, hopefully, and they could be wildly different from each other, right? And it really is up to the inhabitant or up to the third person, which is, better or worse, or functionally more apt for the function that it was designed. I think the function is more objective. The better or worse or feels nicer is slightly more woolly or slightly more subjective. But my point is that there's more than one way to skin the cat, right? There's more than one way to solve a problem, and that's what design thinking embraces. So as architects, this is like bread and butter stuff for us. We are told that you have a design problem. You need to design whatever, a museum, it's a tight plot of land, there are these restrictions, you've got noisy neighbors, you've got a busy highway, blah, 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 whatever the constraints are, go to work, go do it, right? And there's no right or wrong answer. You can do things that are blatantly, functionally stupid, but hopefully if you're ticking all the functional boxes, there's no right or wrong beyond that. Right? Like you like round buildings and I like pokey buildings, right? Whatever. The point is that this ideology of design thinking is equipping people who study architecture to come out and take up a variety of other professions. People go on to do MBAs. People go on to then work in real estate. People go on to join financial institutions, and increasingly financial institutions or even IT companies are looking for people with varied life experience and education experience. So, if I go to Google to work, right, and I maybe just did a 6-month course in coding, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but it might help somewhat my credentials that I studied architecture and I have an approach to problem solving that may, may bring something new to the table where everybody else has been to the same IT course and then a B.Tech or an M.Tech or whatever. So one likes to think that architecture does certainly open up many, many more avenues than simply being an architect or an interior designer or any sort of designer at all. It's the way of thinking or the discipline instilled which should be what counts.
Very true. Praveer, I want you to just touch a bit upon your, what were the hurdles that you faced when you just started your firm? I believe you started it in 2014, right?
Yeah.
And, not to get too negative, but what would be the kind of, red flags or the kind of things to look out for when a person or, our age bracket of people around in your mid-30s or something, when you started out? What are the things that one must just in general keep in mind? Because, we don't anticipate a lot of the things that come. Like for me, just to give you an example, I suck at accounts. Okay, like my accounting skills are subpar at best. And I think that might be a common complaint for anybody in our field because we've never even really been introduced to that subject. And I guess one of the failures of architecture as a business, so to speak, is simply because the founder or the person, the owner of the business doesn't know how to run a business. So apart from that, is there anything else that you can quickly add on to?
So you're absolutely right, Amita, that most practicing architects tend to be proprietors, as in, so you have basically 3 types of business models, just quickly to that, right? You have a proprietorship or a sole proprietor, which is you and you're the owner, and the firm is you and you are the firm. Which is different from a partnership where you and I would have a partnering agreement. It could be 50-50, it could be split differently, it could be that we both brought something in terms of investment or equity, sweat equity work into the company, right? And we share the profits accordingly. But the partnership is a separate entity. Like, so you're Namita Gandhi Shah, I'm Praveer Sethi, and the firm is something else, which is a distinct legal entity. And the third is, of course, a company, which is, more traditional setup, which is with the company secretary and a director and so on and so forth. Anyway, this was not the point. The point is that most architects practicing tend to fall under the first, which is the sole proprietor, and tend to be of a small scale. Right? And as you're very rightly saying, that the thinking also tends to be a bit like a sort of very traditional, almost a mom and pop shop. Maybe there's no mom, maybe there's only a pop, or maybe there's only a mom. But my point is that it's run like I think that there's just generally, we would do well to have a lot more professionalism in not just our discipline, but in the country as a whole. As we're, okay, we can, how long do we go on being a developing country and saying we're wearing that hat? But you're right, because it's when in a mom and pop shop, the mom or the pop is doing everything, aren't they? Like, you're doing business development, which is important, right? Business development is basically going out and bringing in new work, right? You're doing accounting, you're doing, I mean, when I started, and presumably when you started as well, I was doing IT, I was doing concept design, I was drafting. So, I was a two-man show, I guess, because I had one person working with me at the time who was an intern and then turned into an employee and so on. But I was trying to wear many different hats, and I didn't really have a plan, if I'm honest. And I'm not sure that I still do. So I don't know if I'm the exemplar to be talking about this. But I was fortunate in that work came to me, floated to me through the goodwill of friends, family, and just the universe, I guess. Some of it, all of it, whatever, the work that we did spoke for itself, or people spoke on behalf of it. And one of the things that doesn't really happen, sorry, I'm not sure if this is something that we touch on later, is that we aren't allowed to advertise, right, as architects. You can't put an ad in a paper saying, hire me, I'm the best architect, or look at the building I built, or what, or in the paper, or online, or wherever, right? So social media is great for that. Unfortunately, I'm not very good with social media. I try, but yeah,
Ask Dhwani here what
I'm
she
told
thinks
I should
about
be doing a lot more. And perhaps that's one of the things. So, one of the things, the pitfalls to watch out for, as you say, is the architect tends to hoard, at least for me, I know this is true, and a lot of people I know, responsibility. And we're very loath to give that away, and maybe this comes from somewhere historically, when you think of the word architect itself. And by the way, we are, I believe, the oldest or second oldest profession in the world. Don't ask what the oldest is, you won't have to answer. I'll tell you that offline later. But anyway, the point is that the architect word comes from architecton, right, which was master builder or chief builder. Now, the architecton did everything, right? He was actually a very accomplished stonemason who had an idea of planning, right? So he also looked into carpentry. He also looked into stonework. He also looked into, also architecture, like any other profession in the world, has become increasingly specialized and super specialized. And so you have subsets and professions that didn't exist anymore. I mean, again, this is true of any field, right? We have more professions now than we ever did before. Like, you didn't have a blogger 20 years ago, right? Or a social media influencer even 10 years ago, right? But coming back to architecture, we have a lot of allied disciplines, which all used to come under the umbrella of being an architect. So whether that's structural engineering or mechanical or electrical, as I've spoken to you, or an acoustic consultant or a lighting designer, or, and as architects, the traditional mindset has been, and I think this is changing now, is that we're very reluctant because, hey, I used to do this. Why is someone else coming and infringing on my turf? But I think that mindset is changing a bit, hopefully, and we're recognizing that people have a lot to contribute in their own specialist fields. So, my wife as an architect is, is junior to me, sure, by several years, but as a lighting designer carries a set of skills that I, have a lot to learn from her about. And I, hopefully I'm not just saying this because she's my wife, but if you treat each consultant in that way, with the due respect. And so just coming back to your question again is recognize from the first day that you need to do what your core set or responsibility is, right? And that should be defined as two things for me: concept design and business development, or in the other order. So again, business development means bringing in the work. Concept design means doing the generation, the conception of the project, right? And then, great, when you're a one-man show, you're doing everything, but certainly don't try to do the accounts, don't try to do the IT, don't try to do the, all of it, and think a bit bigger than the long term. So don't think about the few thousand rupees that you're going to have to pay someone a month to do your books for you or to manage your computers for you, even if they're just two. Start putting a value on your own time, which says that, man, I don't want to be fixing the fact that my computer screen is flickering and spend half a day or a day doing this. My time is actually worth more. Because when you start respecting and valuing your own time, that starts coming through to your clients, and they then start doing it as well. But if you don't, and you start fiddling in stuff that could be better done by someone else, and I'm guilty of this as much as anyone else, because I have a tendency to micromanage people when they're doing things. So even if I let that work out to someone else, I'll stand over the computer guy's shoulder and see what he's doing, and like you, I'm, sadly equally or possibly almost as equally clueless about accounts. I can't do that with the accountant, but recognize that specialist disciplines exist for a reason, and respect them. And someone else I know, in terms of when he was asked about what advice would you give people looking to start their own practice, gave some very sound advice. This is a guy who was with me at the Bartlett and is now a hugely successful designer, international designer in his own right. It's a guy called Asif Khan from London. In fact, do check out his work. He's doing some brilliant work. And Asif said, hire someone who knows more than you.
Wow.
Hire somebody who's more experienced and has built more than you, and and that comes back to putting aside the ego, because how can I have a guy who works for me who's done who's built more than I have, and who can speak in front of a client more intelligently than I can. No, just take off the hat, put the ego aside for a second, and say, I will thrive and have a lot to learn from this guy, even though I'm paying him to do my work, and that's okay.
Absolutely. That was wonderful.
Because you're getting actually more bang for your buck. You're not just getting your work done, but you have something to learn or to glean from this person in exchange.
For sure.
And I thought that was, initially it seemed like very contrarian or counterintuitive advice. But the more I thought about it, and when I eventually did start my own practice, I thought, yeah, this guy makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Have a plan. I guess to summarize the answer to your question, have a plan, figure out what kind of work interests you and how you can go after that, and do a business plan that involves, procurement of new work. How do you market yourself? Is that social media? Are you going out to people? Are you calling friends, family, other people? Or are you just sitting back and waiting for work to come to you? Which, somehow is the approach that worked for me, but I don't recommend it. It's not a very structured approach, right? So that's one, hire people who know more than you. Two, and three, recognize that you don't have to do everything yourself, and it's not the best use of your time.
Whilst you've been speaking all this, I've got about 4 or 5 DMs from people who know me saying that, yeah, we saw you micromanaging all through. So yeah.
Advice is the easiest thing to give to other people, Namita, right? And I've punctuated this discussion at least twice and said I'm guilty of this, and don't, it's very easy for me to be spouting yarn about this without having actually done or followed these steps. But I think one of the things is that from our missteps, if someone else can avoid the same,
absolutely, I think that's the reason why we're having this.
This discussion has been worthwhile, and we've contributed something that someone can take away and have a smoother path to their own success, right?
For sure. So Praveer, I think that would bring us to the end of our set of questions, but there is one person, Nidesh Gomai, who's asked us, is there any entrance exam for architecture? Yes, there is. There is,
I think I'm better placed. You're probably better placed to answer this than I am. But I think this is also an easily answerable question on Google. I believe there's something called NATA. No?
Yeah, NATA.
Also, my knowledge is very outdated on this, to be honest.
So earlier you needed to take up science, if I'm not mistaken, as your stream in 12th. Yeah.
And now you don't?
Now you don't.
So I don't think I'm the best person to answer this, and I also think it's a question that's quite easily answered.
Yes, there is, but there is an entrance exam, and it's called NATA, and I think your qualifications need to be 12th pass. Of course, it now is no longer restricted to science.
But NATA, as far as I know, is a weightage between aptitude and drawing, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So there's a certain amount of drawing proficiency that you need to display. You need to understand how to draw in 2 dimensions, in 3 dimensions, to draw in perspective, to draw in without throwing in too many technical terms, but isometric and axonometric. So anyway, you don't need to know what these are right now. You will learn it. There are preparatory courses to prepare you for the NATA exam. Although I think that potentially one could do that oneself. And there's an aptitude part, which I think also involves some basic knowledge of maths, and it used to be physics a little bit.
Yes.
But it's not as much as people think.
It's okay. I think it's manageable.
Yeah.
All right. So I think on that note, we are.
Before you end, Namrata, I think we can tell one thing, that in case these students want to intern with Praveen or you for a day or maybe 2 days, I think they'll get a good glimpse of
in 2 days is all they'll see is.
And I both want to throw our heads back and laugh really loud.
Exactly, I'm really
not because of the suggestion per se, but because we tell new recruits when they join that we want them to be with us for at least 2 years. Right? Because sadly, and this is the exact reason my wife left the profession. It's a slow-moving animal. And maybe you can bring something as a new architect to the party that can change that. Like there's a firm called Klein Architecture that exactly got sick of this and started doing what they call fast architecture, where they want to do buildings that are quickly assembled and dismantled. And it's very exciting work. But the point is that sadly, in our profession, to see a building through all the stages of its, from the conception and the first sketch lines drawn to handing over and occupying and being occupied by a client, even for a building of a modest size, like say a 3-4 bedroom country home for somebody, is generally a period of about 3 years, and that's excruciatingly slow. And I wish that could be faster, but as much as it would be nice to think there's this fly on the wall, a day in the life of an architect, you're going to get a very, very surface glimpse. And I'm happy to open up the studio for anyone who wants to come in for a day. But even with the interns, we do encourage the ones that we see potential in to come back and work with us, because it works both ways. It's just that somebody's just about starting up to get warmed up to how we work, how the discipline operates, what this building can actually be, and then they have to leave, after 3 or 4 months. So what we try to do with interns is we try to give them access to a cross section of projects. So you might be working on 3 or 4 things which are at various stages of the life cycle. So this project, you're working on the concept design. That project, I want you to go to site and shadow the person who's running the project and see what the difficulties come up and the queries that come up. In the next project, I want you to go there post-occupancy and see what things are falling apart and what things have worked and what things don't. In the 4th project, I want you to crack out drawings. So, it's impossible in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months internship for somebody to work on one project and get the whole global view. So you try and split that up and give them different bits or different stages of different projects. So, a day is, it's cute, but I'm happy to do it, but I'm afraid it's not going to be super influential.
So Praveen Abhay is actually our club president. Sorry, I didn't land up introducing you to him. We got connected in later. So Abhay is our club president, and he is a dear friend of mine. We are Tom and Jerry, and we love to.
She is, by the way, the next president. I hope she's told you that.
Yes, so, President-elect. I was.
Yeah, we all have to call
her. That's Eklavya right there. Perfect, Eklavya. Thank you for the. Okay, cool. All right. So I think on that note, there was
PR skills.
PR skills, absolutely. So thank you, Praveer. That was lovely. It was extremely insightful, and as always, a pleasure to be chatting with you. And I'm sure that these students, have gotten a lot to take back and will make a more informed decision, hopefully. Yeah.
I hope that I've been able to contribute in some small way to throwing some light on what is and isn't true of what we do. But yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. No, you have. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Dhwani.
Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, Praveer. It was great to have you both here. And I now call upon e-RYLA Rishi, Roteran e-RYLA Rishi. He is Director of Public Relations, and he's going to talk about a little bit that we're coming up with in the next few months from now.
Thank you, Dhwani. And first of all, welcome to all the speakers, to all the guests, to all the students for this wonderful second day of e-RYLA Yuvaan. Congratulations, Dhwani, President Abhay, and the entire team for this successful event. I would just like to give a glimpse, although all of you know, but our club, Rotary Club of Mumbai Coastline, is a young club where we have got people coming from all fields, like who are professionals, freelancers, second or third generation entrepreneurs, and coming up, this young mind coming up towards the betterment of the society, and giving their own ideas at how we can make the community better. And of course, then we have got great fellowships as well. And like I said, that we are just like young people, so the enthusiasm is at its best. Before I say what we are going to do next, I would just like to highlight what we did in the previous month, in the month of July, where the new year started with President Abhay and his board and President Abhay as a president. We had a youth project where we had the art festival, and this was again, under Dhwani, under Rotarian Dhwani, and then the second project that we had was Project Annapurna, where we distributed food grains to the underprivileged. Then we had a guest speaker as well, Mr. Ashish Goyal. What a wonderful and a motivational guest speaker who is like, who's whatever challenges that he has faced in life, and today is a financial trader in the international market. And of course, then apart from that, we've got fellowships, we've had firesides as well. Firesides is where we meet in a small group, we discuss about Rotary and also get to know about each other as well. In this coming year, in this coming month, August, we have this is the project, the e-RYLA, that is going on, forming a youth club. Second is, then again, we have got a fireside, which is hosted by Namrata. Then again, we'll have a fireside, which is hosted by my friend Nishant. We've got two projects. The first project is a mental health training for students, which happened on the 6th of August. There was a mental health training for students from Gandhi Shiksha Bhavan. And on the 20th of August, we also have mental health training for students. So this is a project which will happen on the 1st and the 3rd week. And also we have a mental health literacy training for teachers. So one was a mental health training for students. Now it is for teachers. These two projects are, they are under Rotarian Aditya Mehta and Almitra Timbadia. That's it. This is for now. This is the project that we have in hand. We have some bigger projects as well. We have adopted a school where we are working towards, building up a bigger hostel in that school. And that is one of a very big project. And I'm dead sure that will be also completed within this year under President Abhay Bhatia. So thank you. And Dhwani, over to you.
Thank you so much. So this brings us to the end of today's session as well. This brings us to the end of e-RYLA completely, friends, and everybody who's here today. A word of thanks to all of you who are here. And can you all see me now? Yeah. A word of thanks. A word of thanks to everybody, all our co-hosts, all our district friends, the entire team of youth, and everybody who's involved. Thanks, Abhay, Karan. I mean, there are so many names to thank, but more than anything else, I hope that everybody here has enjoyed e-RYLA. And if you all have any questions, please do write to us.
I think we need to now show the organizing team. I want Shiben and Siddharth and Dhwani to show their screens. They work tirelessly, hard-working guys. Shiben, where are you? Let me start pinning you guys. 1, 2, where's Shiben?
I can't see Anuj also.
Anuj is also here.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
1 second. Where's Shibin?
Here.
Hi, I'm here only.
Yeah, Anuj, I've spotted you. Where's Shibin? Found you.
Hi.
Yeah. So these guys are the whole soul behind the e-RYLA, and they work tirelessly. Each one of them have puffy eyes. They've not slept. I don't know why Anuj has puffy eyes, but the point is that all of you all have worked tirelessly. I'm very happy. You all are the diamonds of our club. And Dhwani, under your leadership, Coastline is going to keep going to greater heights. So I think, Dhwani, you should drop your email address in case your fans want to get in touch with you, including the district governor. I'll definitely pass that on. And does our charter president want to say a few words? I'll put him also on spotlight. He's our biggest source of inspiration. Now a few words on how this was done.
No, it was a fantastic RYLA, and I hope it's helping the young minds. And even one career that we may have helped, we feel honored. And great work, Dhwani and team. Anuj, Shibin, Siddharth, take a bow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Abhay, good job. Good job.
My career has definitely benefited after this e-RYLA. That is for sure. Okay, guys, take care. Bye, Chittagong, and bye, everyone around the world. Praveer, thank you so much. In case you like the Rotary format, I'll tell Namrata to send you a form. You can come and become a member of our club.
Sure. That'd be nice if you can send that across.
Fine. Thank you so much, guys. And signing off from
My special thank to Dhwani for this, for just calling me and telling me to do the work. Thanks, Dhwani, for.
We are going to keep calling you throughout the year and even next year. Don't worry.
Welcome anytime.